Let's continue making our branded ChatGPT clone. So at the moment we have the user experience fairly well sorted out as a start anyway, but we need to wire it up to ChatGPT itself to give it a brain. So let's head over to OpenAI's ChatGPT console and set up a new API key. So just go to openai.com, log in, and then you want the API option, not the normal ChatGPT option. And in the menu over on the left, we go to API, create a new secret key, give it a name so we can find it later. We'll call it branded ChatGPT, same as our Flutterflow project. And this is our key, which you only see once, so take a copy of it, put it somewhere safe. You can always regenerate these, so it's not too much of a problem if you lose it, unless it's in live code. Anyway, that's a different story. And back to Flutterflow. So for now, we'll store our API key within Flutterflow at the app state level as a variable that the whole app can see. So go to app values. Let's call it ChatGPT API key. We'll create that. So that's just a placeholder to put the key in, which we haven't done yet. So to set up the key, we'll create a custom action. So go here to custom code. This does involve a tiny bit of code, but don't worry, it's really straightforward. Custom actions, custom actions, add, no, do this wrong, add, add a custom action, okay. So as it says here, don't fiddle with this code because you'll break your project if you do. We'll give it a name, let's call it get ChatGPT response, it's as good a name as any. And we will pass in an argument to this code, which means pass in a bit of information when you run the code so the code can do something with it. We'll pass in the body, and the body is going to be something called JSON, which is just a structured data format. Come on, there you go. Come on, why are you doing that? Oh my god. We'll make it a list. So it won't just be one thing, it'll be a list of things. And we won't allow it to be, we won't allow it to be nullable, which means we have to pass something in. If it's nullable, it means you don't have to pass something in. You can leave it empty. The reason we're doing that is because it wouldn't be valid to call this code without giving it some data to chew on. It wouldn't make sense to just call the code without telling it anything like your user query, for example. Now we have to do a little bit of a round robin trick with Flutterflow. So we click up here, it generates some template code, which then gets copied back into the editor. I don't know why they've done it like that, but it's okay, it makes sense, I guess. So as it says, add your function code here, let's do that. And what we want to do is we want to use a library HTTP client, which will let us call the ChatGPT API if we give it a bit of information to tell it where to look. So it'll be API client equals HTTP. So it doesn't know what we're talking about at the moment because we haven't told it any of this stuff. So we need to import some libraries for this code to use. If this seems scary, don't worry. It's just like a bit of quirky language, really. It's all you need to think of it as. Right. So it's complaining about this guy because we're not using it yet. So we set it up, but we're not actually using it. So it's just saying, hey, what are you doing here? And this, I don't know why it's doing that. Client isn't defined. It's because if you do control space, it gives you some help. So it should be capital C, basically. That's better. So let's make sure we use this now. What do we need to do? Well, so API URL. API URL, oh my god, URL will be, you can get this from OpenAI's API documentation. HTTPS API openai.com version 1 shit completions are a bit complicated, but they're basically complete conversations, really. That's not a good explanation. I'll cover that in another video. We need to give it, so we need to tell it where to go, which is the URL. We need to give it a header and then a body. So in the header, it's kind of metadata. We're telling it what sort of data we're going to be sending the API. So we need to tell it what form or what type of data we're sending it. So it'll be content type, application JSON, which is that data structure, which actually this is kind of a bit meta, but this is JSON format itself, so you can kind of see what it looks like. So content type, so telling it what format we're going to send it in. And then authorization in American spelling for reasons. And that is a bearer, what's called a bearer token, which is just a key, basically. Maybe I'll do a video on that. The bearer tokens can be quite interesting, but they can get a bit fiddly, a bit complicated. So here, okay, so we're telling it this is the authorization key, so please use this, Mr. ChatGPT API. And this bit of code here, that's our variable that we set up as application state just now. So it's saying, here's your key, please use this. These are type sensitive, so make sure you get that right, not like that. Close this off. So we've given it a header to tell it what the information we're going to pass it is about, and now we actually have to pass it the information, and we pass that in the body. So body, we need to convert these little bits of information we're going to give it into JSON again, and we can do that automatically with JSON encode. So here we're gonna pass in the model. Oops. Not like that, we're not. Like this. Yes, model. In fact, let's make this formatting a bit easier to see. That's better. Model. Okay, let's go nuts and use the latest one as of today. Oops, which GPT-4 0125 preview. Okay, so that should get pretty good results. Formatting's off. Oh no, come on. Twist in my melon, that's better. No, we need to give it our message, which is what the user typed in. That's called messages. That message is the argument that we passed in at the top here, this thing. In fact, let's change that. I don't like that message. Messages, actually. Messages. Okay. No. Let's call it user messages. Let's try and make it crystal clear. User messages, that's better. And then we'll do, you can either get it to give all the data back in one go, which is how a lot of these APIs work normally, or you can use streaming, which is kind of what you see visually on the screen when you use ChatGPT, that it just gives you, it literally, well, ChatGPT works out statistically one word at a time, so you can see it going less so now because it's so fast. But let's do this as streaming to make it a bit more interesting visually. Okay, that looks good, apart from my head in the way. So we should have everything set up. Now we actually have to do the call itself to the API. Let's do a variable called request. And using our HTTP library, we will request first. This is going to be a post. You can call APIs in different ways. Normally it would be a get, where you kind of get like a web page or get some data. Post is where you kind of post data back to it, which is what we're doing. We are posting our user message to the API to get ChatGPT to process it. URI. So we're going to pass our API URL to make sure that it's valid, and we're going to append our header that we set up. So that's gone a bit squiggly here. I'll come back to that in a minute. And now we need to pass in our body, our actual message. But request body equals body. Good. And then we'll get the response back from the API. final OCB response. Oh, it's done it right. Of course. So we're going to wait for the call to come back, because otherwise it'll just carry on going like, oh, I didn't hear any response, I'm just going to keep running. So this will make it wait to hear back from the OpenAI API. So await API client send request, I think. No. Oh my god. So API client, which we set up before, send request. Okay, good. Need to fix this. That looks a bit off as well. Oh, did I call it something else? Yeah, probably. Let's come back to that. Did I call that something else? Yeah. Okay, I'll fix that in a minute. So the last bit is we need to listen for the information coming back from ChatGPT. Response stream. Listen. That should return a list. A list of integers with values. So we need to decode the value that comes back from the API. Decode new value equals UTF-8. UTF-8.decode value. So it's just converting the data that comes back into a format that we can use. So this is the interesting bit where we put the data that comes back from ChatGPT into our chat history variable that we set up earlier. So we need somewhere to put this data stream into, so we need to do that first. Let's just add that now. So Flutterflow app state, and add to chat history, that was our variable we set up before. So this is just creating a little place for our data to sit in. And we had source will be assistant, i.e. ChatGPT, and we called it content, didn't we? But content will be, well, we don't know yet. So let's get the data, but firstly we'll do an idiot check just in case, just a sanity check. So make sure it actually does contain some data. So if it contains data, then we can use that data. So we'll split up the data and take just the piece that we want. So decoded value. So split. So we want to split up the data where it says data in the JSON. Where it says data in the JSON, and we only want the first one of those. Thank you. So now we'll do another sanity check, because within this piece of information, we want the actual content, the actual phrase that ChatGPT replied to us. So if data contains content, then we can do something funky with it to that's okay. Okay, I'm going to pause here.